What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, Mass Media Hysteria, here on my YouTube channel. My name is Court. I will be your host for the duration. As always, with me is Chris.
How's it going, everyone?
It is June 26th, although this is going to be coming out on June 27th. Today, we are going to be talking about the following topics. We're going to talk some movie trailers and then do a couple of reviews. So first, we're going to talk about the new trailer for Halloween Kills. Then we're going to move on to the new Netflix Western, The Harder They Fall. Finally, the latest trailer for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Then, as per usual, we will be doing a full spoilers review of Loki Episode 3, which was titled...
Lamentis.
Lamentis, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then finally, we are going to be doing a full spoilers review of Batman The Long Halloween Part 1. So that is the show. As per usual, we want to thank... Chris is coming live from Gotham City. As per usual, we want to thank you guys for watching. Want to remind you that if you don't have time to watch a long-ass YouTube video, you can find these podcasts on places like Spotify and Google Podcasts, with hopefully more to come. I'm still waiting on that. It's kind of driving me crazy. We would also like to encourage you that if you enjoy the podcast, drop a like on the video, even share it around. It just helps the video get out there to more people. It helps the channel grow. We appreciate that very much. And of course, if you're on this channel and you haven't subscribed to the channel, you should do so too. And finally, I just want to point out that I just earlier today put up a review of the new Liam Neeson action movie, The Ice Road. That is on my channel right now. If you want just a very quick review of the movie, let me say...
He's shaking his head. For those listening to the audio, there was a big sour face. Just no.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Or do it. I don't know. I got some laughs out of it. I'll give it that. So
yeah, Court asked me before. He's like, "Do you want to watch this?" And I'm like, "Not really." I asked him specifically, like, "Is this so bad it's good?" And he didn't quite give it that ringing endorsement. So
not quite.
Yeah, which is I think the reason why I was like, nah, I'm good. Because if you were like, this is so awful that it's just a laugh a minute or whatever, or it's just like, it's so weird and awful, I would have checked it out. But when it's something that's just kind of like just bad and boring, then I don't know, it's a slog for me to get through.
Let me I'll give a quick spoilery moment from the movie. So if you guys haven't seen the movie yet, and you don't want to, I'll wave when I'm done. Okay. So just mute it and I'll wave when I'm done. There is a scene, and this scene, I actually had to pause it because I was laughing so hard. Chris, I told you about this scene. There is a scene where Liam Neeson he's piecing together a little bit of treachery. He's figuring out what's going on. And I don't remember word for word what he says, but he says something along the lines of, and I'm going to do my Liam Neeson impression, which is really unfortunate. But he says something along the lines of like, "Why would an employee of the company that hired us try and sabotage us? He wanted us to fail. I didn't see it. I was so caught up in my own mind, I didn't see it. Now I'm angry." And then he goes on to say, "This isn't about the money anymore. This is about revenge." And I was just like, okay.
Oh my God. It's awful because like half of those lines, they sound like direction. You know what I mean? Like if someone's reading the script, those parts would be in parentheses of like, you're piecing this together. You didn't see it before, but now you're angry. You don't fucking verbalize that in a
you shouldn't.
And I awful.
I love saying "now I'm angry." That's my favorite part because
now I'm angry.
We can see that. And as I said in the non-spoiler review, you've been angry this whole movie. Nothing's changed here. Now you're angry.
Before I was just like, I was a little pissed, but now full on angry.
Yeah. So that's my review of that movie. So let's move on. So first we're going to talk about Halloween Kills, which is the brand new trailer. This is the sequel to the Halloween film that came out, I believe, in 2018, written by David Gordon Green.
Which was the sequel to the 1978 Halloween, not to be confused with Halloween 2 from the 80s, also not to be confused with the Rob Zombie Halloween or the Halloween 2 that he did. So it's the fact that they couldn't really come up with a better name than just Halloween for the last one was, you know.
But yeah, so yeah, this one kind of ignores every other movie in the franchise after it just becomes... Sorry, the 2018 one, I should say, is a direct sequel to the first one. This is a sequel to that. And then there is a third planned that I believe is coming next year, which I believe is called Halloween Ends.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So first off, I should say I have not seen the 2018 film.
Really?
I have never seen a Halloween movie all the way through.
Wow.
I grew up a fan of horror, but like the zombie genre, I was never really into the slashers.
Mhm.
So I don't know my Halloween lore terribly well. Like
Okay.
I know the basics.
Yeah.
I will say first off, I liked this trailer. I thought it looked pretty cool.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed. You see, I always blank on her name, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Mhm.
You see Jamie Lee Curtis in the back of like I think it was maybe an ambulance or something. I'm assuming this picks up right where the last movie ended. Like I'm assuming the movie ends with them burning the house down.
Yes, so for little spoilers for the 2018 one, that movie does end with a climactic battle inside Jamie Lee Curtis's house with her daughter and granddaughter. They light it ablaze, and they very Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They hop in the back of a pickup, and they're being taken away. So yeah, the trailer makes it seem like this movie picks up the second the last one ended.
I do love it when movies do that. I really when
Yeah.
sequels do that.
Hmm.
And I just liked that. I really liked the moment in the trailer where you see the firefighters heading to the house and Jamie Lee Curtis is screaming like, "No, like let it burn." That was cool. I like
Yeah,
that. What,
she's giving it. She's giving it her all. You could feel it. She's like, let it burn. I'm like, God damn, Jamie.
yeah, it's like I'm glad that this franchise has sort of brought her back to Hollywood a little bit because like there's a long course of time there where like we did not see much of Jamie Lee Curtis at all, and I've always liked her.
Yeah, man, she's been great. I mean, she Halloween was definitely one of the movies that really kind of kicked off her career. And she starred in a few other kind of she was a scream queen at the time. So she started in Halloween. I believe she was in Prom Night or April Fool. I always fucking mix it up. But she was in another one. She was in like another horror movie called like Murder Train or something. But she became a pretty big star throughout the 80s and the 90s. And then yeah, we didn't see much of her in the 2000s. I think it was one of those things where like for a while, I probably still to an extent, women of a certain age don't really get that many roles in Hollywood. And but I'm glad that they're bringing her back. Because of that, she was in Knives Out, and I should check her IMDb to see if she's doing anything else besides these Halloween movies because she's great. She's awesome.
And I've never understood why she's not in any of the Christopher Guest movies. Like she's very funny,
Oh,
and
that's the dude that does like Waiting for Guffman, right?
mhm, yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah. Those weird kind of. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
they've been married for years, and
Oh, is she married to him?
yeah.
Oh, dude, I had no idea. When you made that connection, I was like, okay. Like I thought it was random at first,
Sorry,
but
sorry.
no. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm not sure because like I feel like she could do that kind of deadpan humor for
Oh, I
sure.
mean, if you watch Trading Places or A Fish Called Wanda or Fierce Creatures, like she's really funny.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe she just doesn't want to work with her husband. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, fun fact: Christopher Guest is like he's a count or a duke. He's one of those. I can't
Oh.
remember which. It's just weird, which is funny
It's
because
just like
he
go
played
ahead.
Count Rugen in The Princess Bride. Weird.
Mm.
Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Love Christopher Guest. Anyway, what were your let me say this. Did you like the 2018 Halloween movie?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very good. I love the Halloween series. Obviously mostly the original John Carpenter one. I think is one of the few examples of a slasher film that I don't know if like high art is the right way to call it. I think John Carpenter would also scoff if you called it high art, but it's definitely a leagues above most slasher films around that time. Um, I've heard some people say they go back and they find the original one to be a bit dated and slow and there's not much gore and stuff, but it's great. It's a great tension building film. And the sequels after that have all just kind of followed more traditional slasher tropes, and so it's fun in that regard of like, oh, there's horny teenagers and then they get killed. um but yeah, I was really surprised and impressed by the 2018 revival, because it was one of those soft reboots where it was technically a sequel to the original, like it was picking up of the story, but it was also kind of like just a retread of the original, but not so familiar that it became bothersome. It was a really good way of kind of bringing the series back, and where it left off, it got me excited for the possibilities of like, okay, cool. So like we've kind of done a bit of the retread. Where else can we go from here? And this looks like it's getting wild. Like the just in the trailer alone, the body count that Michael was racking up was surprising because like, I mean, I don't think that they would give away all of the good stuff in the trailer. So the fact that they showed this much makes me think like, how many people is he going to take out in this movie? And in brutal fashion too, is that like some really cool stylish shots of him like kind of stabbing the firefighters through like the face mask and everything. Um, yeah, no, I am very excited for this. I mean, I it was supposed to come out last year, so this I was actually pretty bummed that it got pushed back. Excited that we only have to wait a few months now. It looks brutal. I think that's what's cool about it. The things that I think are interesting about this trailer is just how brutal they're making Michael. Because he was brutal in the 2018 one, but I think that there's as like a horror fan, as like a slasher fan as well, you always kind of want him to take it up a notch of just kind of like how creative and how intense can these kills be. This trailer makes it seem like they're going for it. The other two things that I really dug about this trailer was that they kind of were like the dialogue was kind of alluding to the fact that like there's a supernatural element to Michael Myers, which in the first one he was pretty much he was just a guy, like. But there's they're kind of a famous ending. I feel like if people, even if they haven't seen the movie, they've kind of seen this trope where they shoot Michael, he falls out of a window, and he seems dead on the ground, and then they look away and they look back and he's gone. So there was like a hint or elements of like from the original that like, oh, maybe this guy isn't all just a normal dude. But this one seems like they're really going for like he's a fucking demon or something. Like they were really were hyping up that supernatural element. Did you kind of pick up on that, or are you interested in that element?
Into it, yeah. I mean, I think Jamie Lee Curtis's character even says like, she says something along the lines of like he's really hard to kill, but he can be killed or something. I think she said something along those lines.
Yeah.
My question being, well, how do you know that if he's never been killed? But whatever, I haven't seen all the movies. So.
Jamie, come on. But yeah, no. So I'm stoked for it. The other thing that I thought was kind of cool. It was giving me major like Night Stalker vibes, and that's a real world serial killer case. If people don't know, there was like someone called the Night Stalker in California around like the 70s and stuff. Richard Ramirez was his name. He was a serial killer.
Oh, I know that name. Yeah.
Yeah. But the way he was caught actually was that it was like a mob of people. Like he just came into a neighborhood and essentially a mob of neighbors and just civilians tracked him down and got him. And the police took him away before the crowd just ripped him apart. Which is really cool. It's like kind of like, one of those inspiring things, real life stories. But in this trailer, they were showing like shots of, it seemed like, dozens and dozens of towns members just like chanting and like kind of rallying together. And I dug that, where it's like, okay, is there going to be an element where Michael becomes hunted himself? Because he's strong and he's, seemingly supernatural and stuff. But if there's like the entire town, very Frankenstein, with pitchforks and axes and torches coming after him, that's gonna be rad. I'm stoked.
Yeah, I could be into that. And another thing that stood out to me again, and I haven't seen the Halloween movies all the way through, but I don't live under a rock. Man, that John Carpenter score is so mint. It's just so good.
Yeah, and that was one of the great things about the 2018 revival, is that not only did they kind of get John Carpenter as kind of like an executive producer to kind of get his blessing for it, which many of the sequels did not, but they got John Carpenter to be the composer. So he was the composer for the last one, and I just double checked. He's the composer for this one, which is great because in 2018 it was a lot of, he was the original composer of that theme as well. The but he added like a lot of interesting new compositions into the 2018 one that felt like they came straight from the 70s in the best way possible. Like it felt like, yeah, this, you could just transplant this song to the original, and it would have fit perfectly. So the fact that he's returning as well means that he seems to give this movie his blessing as well, and he's probably going to write another kick-ass score. So
All right, let's go. All right, so unless you have anything else you want to add, we shall move on.
no, let's do it.
Okay. So we're going to talk about this new Netflix movie called The Harder They Fall. This is a Western. And let me bring up the name of the director. I looked it up. He hasn't done much.
It's, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Jamie's Samuel.
It's
James.
I'm assuming it's just a clever spelling of James. That's my guess. Yeah, James Samuel. I don't know this man's work at all. But like this cast, like Zazie Beetz, Idris Elba, Lakeith Stanfield, Regina King, Jonathan Majors, Delroy Lindo.
Hell yeah.
I'm already in, which is a weird thing for me to say because I do have this weird bias against Westerns. I don't know why. I've never been into them. Like, I remember really liking The Unforgiven. But generally there's something about them that just doesn't work for me. Even Appaloosa. You know how much I love Ed Helms, and when I say Ed Helms, I mean Ed Harris.
Was that a callback or an actual mistake?
No, that was callback.
Okay,
I planned that earlier.
Okay, that's fair.
I love Ed Harris. He did a movie many years ago called Appaloosa. So it's Ed Harris, Jeremy Zion, and Viggo Mortensen in a movie directed by Ed Harris. I remember seeing the trailer going, I'm gonna love this. I didn't.
Yeah.
Some of the Westerns, I don't know. But I'll say I really like this trailer. What did you think?
I love Westerns. Maybe it's because you're Canadian and Westerns are very it's just a joke. I get it because Westerns they've been around since like seriously the dawn of cinema. It's one of the oldest genres. There's been a billion Western movies, and they follow a lot of the similar tropes. So whenever a new Western's coming out, there's always got to be like a bit of a spin on it to kind of make it engaging or interesting to modern audiences. So I remember reading about the cast about a year ago before anything else came out, and I was like, okay, I'm already in just because of this cast. Like you said, Jonathan Majors, who is great in Lovecraft Country, the HBO series. Regina King, who I love. Lakeith Stanfield is the man in he was recently in Judas and the Black Messiah. Idris Elba, always cool as Zazie Beetz. So I was already on board, and the trailer I think kind of sold me even more because it's admittedly, does the trailer look like this completely groundbreaking Western, like that's going to revolutionize the genre? No, it looks like a Western, but it looks very stylish. So even though I was already on board because of the awesome cast, I appreciated how much style and energy just in this trailer it seems like this film has from the director, Mr. James Samuel, who's, I just checked on IMDb, his only other credit was, as far as directing, was another film called They Die by Dawn, which is also another black-led Western. So I guess that's his thing. That's what he's into. But yeah, there were just certain things like at the beginning of the trailer, when they broke Idris Elba out of that kind of that cage in the train, and it's kind of like in slow motion walking away, all cool, while they're like, people are fighting him around him. There's some cool camera shots. Like, it reminded me, with a lot of like snap zooms and cool camera angles, it reminded me a lot of Sam Raimi's The Quick and the Dead, which I'm not sure if you've seen.
I think I did a long time ago.
It's fun. Little Leo DiCaprio's in it. So yeah, like I said, does this look like a revolutionary Western? No, but it looks pretty badass. And sometimes you just kind of want to throw on a cool Western or a cool action flick. And it's, even though this is not anywhere near the first, it's still sort of a rarity to see an all black cast in a Western. Right. I mean, like one of the most famous Westerns of recent times was Django Unchained, which has some controversy. I personally love Quentin Tarantino, but I can understand where a lot of people don't like that movie for a lot of reasons. And you know, despite Django being kind of the hero of the film, he's still a slave, and he's still kind of like, he was still kind of submissive or oppressed through a lot of that movie. But this one, it doesn't seem like they barely address it, in the sense like they're already established badasses. It's not the rise of these characters. They're already gunslingers. They're already awesome. So yeah, I'm for it, man. I'm stoked.
Well, one thing I sort of really took from this trailer that I really liked is there's a swagger to it, like kind of to your point that they're not up and coming, they're already established. Like,
yeah,
they are badass. They know that they're gonna win this fight. They know that, you know, like, or they have that like very strong confidence about it. And particularly, like, I loved the music in this trailer. I forget the name of the song, but it's the Afrobeat artist Fela Kuti, who was pretty awesome. I think he was kind of a terrible person, as I recall, but his music is great.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard the beat, I was like, I bet that's Fela, and I pulled up the SoundHound app, and yep.
Nice.
So that was good, and I think that really worked with the swagger of the trailer. I'm looking forward to this. Unfortunately, the trailer didn't tell. It's a Netflix movie, but the trailer didn't tell us when it's coming out. It just said coming soon. So
yeah, and even on IMDb, it just says expected 2021. Okay. All right, which is a bummer, because I hope it's sooner rather than later. I don't think this is gonna. It doesn't look like it's, even if it comes out in the fall, it doesn't look like this is gonna be an awards kind of push. But that it doesn't need to be. It doesn't. You know. I just want it to be cool. I want it to live up to what the trailer promised, which is a cool, stylish flick. And like you said, the music in it is awesome. And I hope that they, in the trailer at least, so I hope that they kind of keep that as well. I hope that they don't mind, you know, being anachronistic and having some modern music in it, because I think that it just kind of, it's a good mix. It doesn't work for every movie, but in this case, it's like, it just seems like this is a good cocktail that will go down smooth.
Now, in fairness, Fela Kuti isn't necessarily modern. That's like 70s, but that's still quite a bit. A bit of time after the Western.
It's still anachronistic, you know, as far as the time goes. But yeah, that's another thing, is that the trailer made it feel like you could feel the 70s influence, like both kind of like the spaghetti westerns that also influenced Tarantino, but a lot of blaxploitation films. Like I got a lot of like. What is it? Thomasine and Bushrod, which is another kind of black-led a blaxploitation western. You know, Shaft always will come into mind, but yeah, the cinematic references, I think it's clear that the director has a fondness for that time period, which I'm stoked for.
All right, so we will move on then and talk about the latest trailer for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I will say that I think we talked about it on the show. The original trailer for the movie, I don't know much about the character. It feels like now that Marvel's really sort of going deep into the sort of more deep cut characters. So I didn't know anything about this character. But, you know, MCU movie, I mean, I really like most of them, so I'll check it out either way.
Yeah.
First trailer did next to nothing for me. I don't know why.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, it looks colorful, but I don't know. It just didn't get me on board. I watched this trailer earlier today. I'm in.
Oh, really?
I really like this trailer.
Do tell. What about this compared to the first one?
I'm not sure, because I haven't rewatched the first trailer again yet, so it's hard for me to compare and contrast. But like, I don't know. I feel like we got a little bit more of the story here, like particularly the mom, who I believe is played by Michelle Yeoh.
Oh yeah.
She's talking to Shang-Chi, played by Simu Liu, who's from Canada, from Toronto, I believe.
Yeah, he's a good Canadian boy.
Indeed. And she's saying, you know, you are, you know, partly your mom and you are partly your dad, whether you like it or not. So they're setting up this sort of father-son. Obviously there's friction there. There's like a respect from the father to the son, because he said something along the lines of, you know, I told them that they wouldn't be able to kill you or whatever, and I'm glad you proved me right. So there's like a respect there, but there's also like a lot of tension there, and I'm always kind of drawn into father-son stories anyway. Then there was a fucking dragon, so that's cool. Then I'm pretty sure that was Abomination from The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, did you see? Did you catch though? Because a lot of people didn't catch this other thing. It was in the same bit. So it was the Abomination, but did you catch who he was fighting?
No.
Okay, so if you go back, and a lot of people have like analyzed, he's fighting Wong from Doctor Strange.
Really?
Yeah, because okay, technically, you don't see his face, but it's the same head, same shape, and he's doing the little like
Okay.
the thing. And so I don't think he's in the cast, but I mean like bring him in. That's fucking awesome. Yeah, I mean first time we're seeing Abomination since 2008.
Okay.
He's looking a bit more comics accurate because he's got kind of like gills. Like in the comics, he looks much more amphibian, and in the movie with Edward Norton, he just kind of looked like Green Muscle Man. I don't know. But yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to point that out because everyone's like Abomination, Abomination. I'm like, I think that's Wong. I think he's fighting Wong, which is awesome.
I'm into that. I love Wong. Wong
Mhm.
kills me. I think he's so funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the actor who played him, can't think of his name off the top of my head.
It's Benedict. Hold on, let me see.
Benedict Wong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew his last name was Wong because I remember thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, it's same as his character. But yeah, it's Benedict Wong.
Okay. Yeah, because he was also, as we talked about, I really liked him in Raya and the Last Dragon as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just love the Wong character. He makes me laugh really hard. He's great. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, right on. And it's also cool for me, like, because I'm not familiar with any of these characters at all. Yeah, give me a Wong. Give me someone I'm sort of familiar with. That'll help.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I like this trailer. I am admittedly not super stoked. It's I guess the worry is not that this is going to be bad. I don't think this is going to be bad. I trust Marvel enough. Like even the movies that I think are kind of more subpar, I don't think are flat out bad. This one, I'm worried if it's going to be a little bit middle of the road for a few reasons. There are things about it that look great to me. One is the action scenes. We talk all the time, you and I, about poorly directed, poorly executed action scenes where it's a lot of quick cut, fast cutting, a lot of shaky cam, it's too close. But when it's martial arts specifically, and they're supposed to be martial arts masters, you gotta stop with the fast cuts and you gotta just pull back. Don't even, but you just lock the camera down, or I mean, you can kind of pan and stuff, but just show us the choreography because that's what we want to see, and that's what it seems like they're doing. It's still quickly cut because it's a trailer, but at the same time, they show enough fluidity with the movements that makes me think that like, okay, I think they're gonna do justice to kind of these martial arts sequences. So that has me excited. It's a great cast. Michelle Yeoh is fantastic. I love the father is played by Tony Leung, who's he's a Chinese actor. He's worked a lot with one of my favorite filmmakers, Wong Kar-wai, in Hong Kong and China. And he's been in some American stuff before, so this isn't like a first time, but I know mostly from the Wong Kar-wai stuff, and he's a phenomenal actor. Not sure if he's gonna be given much to do in here prior to than just being like disappointed father, but yeah. Some of the things that are making me kind of feel like or are holding me back from being like super excited is one, surprisingly, Simu Liu, who is a very talented and very charismatic actor. He's in this the Canadian show Kim's Convenience, which just ended. I know there's controversy around it ending. He's upset about it. That aside, he's very funny in it. He's very endearing and yeah. So I was super stoked about his casting. And so this is not him. I'm not blaming him, the actor, at all, but the trailer made the character of Shang-Chi just seem a bit like bland action man. He's just kind of stoic action man, like, I will do what I must.
Right.
And that can get dull. That can get boring. I know everybody loves Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers is a little dull at times, and I'm sorry. Everyone can send in their hate mail, but Steve Rogers is kind of dull, and he only really works because he has interesting supporting characters around him. I'm hoping that's not necessarily the case with Shang-Chi. I'm hoping that the trailer is a bit deceiving, and I hope that he has a bit more personality throughout it, because I think it would be a waste of Lou's talent, because he's, like I said, he's so charismatic and he's so charming. Yeah, did that come across to you, or do you find with stoic action man?
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I can see at least kind of the moments of his that they picked for this trailer. I can see that. I can totally see that.
Yeah.
I think I have enough faith in Marvel that they'll build up his characterization more than that, I would imagine.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because look, and before anyone jumps on me, I am 110% not blaming Brie Larson, because I love her. I think she's fantastic. I know she gets weird hate from annoying people online because she's like, oh, she's so woke. Bleh. Shut up. But Captain Marvel Carol Danvers is a little dull in her first movie. And again, that's not Brie Larson's fault. She's an Academy Award-winning actress. She is terrific. I'm super stoked for the sequel, but just the characterization, I think that they lean too heavily in, again, just like, you are stoic action woman. You are a badass. And it's like, cut loose a little bit. Part of the reason why this whole thing kicked off the MCU was of how charismatic the lead was, Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man. If he was just stoic action man, I don't think it would have succeeded. But the reason why Iron Man succeeded was because it was an awesome character, and you loved seeing him. And part of the reason why Thor as a character kind of got more of a resurgence, because, like, Thor: The Dark World didn't really, a lot of people consider it to be the worst of the MCU. You've mentioned before that you've never even finished it. Yeah. And then Marvel had the foresight, or they had the awareness to be like, we got to change this up. And now he's become this hilarious, charismatic, charming character, really utilizing Chris Hemsworth's comedic chops. He's no longer just like, I'm Thor, the god of thunder. Like, he still sounds like that, but he's funny, and he's kind of, I don't know. So I'm hoping they do more of that and less just kind of, I'm Shang-Chi.
Right. And we should move on quickly. But I did want to mention, just because you brought up Brie Larson, did you ever see Unicorn Store?
No, I know that she directed it.
She directed it, started it. I actually liked it. It's a weird little movie. It's kind of a fantasy romance comedy thing, but it was weird in a good way, and I dug it.
I do want to check it out. I've heard good things about it. And it's interesting that that she both starred and directed in it. So yeah, I'm sure I'll check it out at some point.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about Loki episode 3, Lamentis. Again, I do have a spoiler-free version, or a spoiler-free review of this episode up on my channel. I'll link it up there, as I do. We're probably gonna have to power through this one fairly quickly because we still have a long Halloween to talk about. But let me start with this. I know a lot of people, in fact, the majority of people that I've seen talking about this episode are saying this is the weakest episode of Loki. They really didn't like it. It was a filler episode. It was a side mission episode. I will say, for me, side mission episode, absolutely. I'll give it that. It doesn't really advance the story all that much. Filler, I didn't get that. For me, this was my favorite one so far. I had a ton of fun with this episode. We'll get to more of my thoughts in a second, but what were your overall thoughts on this one?
I completely agree. Whoever really popularized the term filler episode, I just want to punch in the face, because I think that but here's the thing. It's not just that. I think most people don't really even fully understand what a filler episode is. A filler episode is something, it's usually, let's say, I know that I'll make it brief, but it's essentially like, like a network show that has 24 episodes. And then there's like there's like a few episodes where literally nothing happens. There's no character development. There's no plot revert. It's like they go do something that has nothing to do with anything. That is not this episode. This episode is not, a filler episode is not one that doesn't just like advance the overall plot like tremendously. If it doesn't do that, then it's filler. No, that's not it, because this is all about character development. This is a very character development heavy episode. And to say that that's nothing, that's filler, that's the meat of it. That's what's interesting to me. Again, I mentioned before the most interesting moments were in the previous two episodes for me were these character moments between Loki and these discussions with Mobius that really kind of got into his psyche, into who he is as a person. And that's the majority, not all of it, but that's the majority of what this third episode is, Lamentis. You get to understand Loki as a character, you get to understand Sylvie as a character, and there's so much character stuff that anybody that watches this and thinks they're like, oh, this is they're just wasting time. What are you talking about? And also, I get that it's subjective, but if all you do is watch movies and TV with the sole intent of just like plot, it must be about plot, you need to fucking relax, because like there's so much more media and arts to consume that is not about like, well, then they did this and then they did this and then they did this. I don't know. I get heated about it, clearly.
No, well, and I understand your point of view, because like what does plot matter if you don't care about the character, and how can you care about the character if you don't know anything about the character?
Exactly.
This is one thing I said in my review of the Ice Road. It was like, there was cool action, but I didn't feel the stakes because I didn't care about any of these characters.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, this episode was absolutely a character first episode. And I will say this, that you and I have been talking about how from the trailers, we thought the show looked incredibly cinematic. We didn't so much get that in the first two episodes. It looked good, but we didn't get that big grand scope because a lot of it was taking place at the TVA or in a department store. Here, we go to this other planet. I thought this episode was absolutely gorgeous. What did you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, visually, it's stunning. It's the most visually stunning of the Marvel shows so far, and it could be up there with some of their best looking movies. The whole planet Lamentis, the title of the episode is referring to Lamentis 1, the moon that they're on. It's it's like an apocalyptic event of I might be mixing it up. It's either a planet that they're on and the moon is exploding, or vice versa. They're on a moon and the planet is exploding. So everyone is going to die on this moon base. And it has like this gorgeous purple kind of tint to it. There's like these little glowing asteroids that are falling all around them. Wherever you look, it's always something visually interesting. There are moments where there is some kind of noticeable green screen, like you can kind of see the outline around their heads. It's not awful. It didn't really take me out of it, but it's something to be noted. But yeah, as far as the visual goes, again, everything was just top notch. The art direction of the show just continues to impress me. Like when Loki and Sylvie are on that train, there's some beautiful mood lighting that really sets this atmosphere of kind of this ritzy train that only the wealthy people are allowed to get on. It's a train that essentially goes to the Ark, which is supposed to be, as the title implies, biblically, it's supposed to save them, take them off of this exploding rock. And yeah, so stuff like that, for it's not just like the visuals outside on the planet, but just like the interiors of that train. And my favorite, when they go to that little outstation, or that at the end, when they're running around in that like Blade Runner meets Mad Max town.
Yeah. Yep.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
I said in the non-spoiler, it was like a city-sized nightclub, because it was just all neon, and it was absolutely beautiful. I want to hang out in that city.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, in that sequence, I know we're jumping all over the place, but how cool was that sequence? I mean, as a filmmaker, you always kind of, I get the appeal, and it's fun to kind of try to do things in a nice long one shot. And so this one was 1917 like, or Birdman, where you could kind of tell where they kind of stitched together multiple shots. But essentially there's several minutes of Loki and Sylvie just running around and fighting people in this neon nightclub outpost is falling in around him. It was a really stunning sequence. And
yeah,
I mean, like, hell, again, if it's like, if you think that this is a filler episode as far as plot goes, like, this has got to be that sequence has got to be one of the more visually entertaining or spectacle inducing sequences out of the three Marvel shows so far.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like, I also had, again, even though it is kind of a side mission episode, I had a lot of fun with this, and I thought that what's her name? Sophie DiMartino, I think is her name.
Yeah.
And Tom Hiddleston, I thought their chemistry was really good. I enjoyed the banter back and forth. I was kind of missing Owen Wilson's character, but there was a similar dynamic between Loki and Sylvie in that they're trying to work together, but they're still, I thought that was a lot of fun. My favorite sequence of the entire episode, though, was when they were sitting on the train and just having that conversation about what is love and who we are. And they sort of, and I know some people are up in arms about this or whatever, but they sort of subtly suggest that Loki is bisexual. And that's character. And that's a character particularly who, like, I have no trouble buying that. I mean, but like, I loved the way that sequence was written. It was just such a quiet little, and I'm always a sucker for, like, you're sort of two hero, villain, whatever it is, two people on opposite sides of the line just sitting down and having a conversation. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was great. What did you take away from that scene?
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorites as well. Again, visually it's just beautiful. Like it's two people talking, but there's so much going on visually. But that's the meat of it, and that's what was so interesting, where they're really kind of delving into who they are as people, and you get to learn about Sylvie's upbringing and to an extent, and how it differs from Loki's, because they're both variants to an extent. And they're both one and the same but different. It's like a Venn diagram of people. And so hearing their backstory, hearing them kind of talk about love, and Loki one of the it's a bit later on in the sequence, but he tries to give a metaphor of, like, what is love? Love is like a dagger. And it starts off and you're kind of like, I can kind of see it, and then it kind of devolves into her saying, like, so love is an imaginary dagger,
right?
So no, it's very funny. But yeah, that's what the show does really, really well. One of the things the show does really well. It lets the characters talk. It lets the characters be themselves, and that's what's interesting. If this episode was just more them being like, here's exposition about the TVA. The TVA was created, blah blah blah. Who cares, man? Like, that stuff is interesting, but it's only interesting because how it affects these characters, and that's what's more interesting to me. Yeah, really great stuff. I agree, it's like, of all the characters that could have come out as bi, and I don't think this was even just hinted at. I think it was pretty, like, I think he says it pretty much. He didn't say I'm bisexual, but it's essentially like, she was like, has there been any princesses or princes, and he says a bit of both. Yeah, one, just from, like, the characterization in this franchise, it makes total sense. Like, Loki is this, he's this very, like, fluid character that it just seems like he would just take what he wants, or be with who he wants. But also,
and he's also just, like, incredibly hedonistic too, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I get a kind of like a Caligula kind of vibe from the guy,
Yeah. And also, I mean, just based on Norse mythology, that's accurate. Like, it's seriously, like, there's a weird, over Norse mythology was not weird about that. There were characters that were, like, sleeping with men, characters sleeping with women, sleeping with horses, and, like, they're literally, like, in traditional Norse mythology, Loki gives birth to, like, a spider thing. It's so if anybody's just like, why is he just so woke? Like, shut up. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't know if I don't know. I thought it was cool. It wasn't a big revelation, you know what I mean? Like, I think we both said it's sort of like, yeah, if any character is going to be that, it's Loki. So it's fine.
All right. Well, I guess we should probably, unless there's anything else specific you want to talk about from the episode.
Oh, well, I do just kind of want to say, and we don't have to dwell on it. There's two things, and we're not going to get into speculation, because I know that it's WandaVision really, they hurt us. Wanda she hurt us, and I'm afraid to love again. But I really dug how this episode ended. Like, I thought there was going to be, I expected it to sort of like be a cliffhanger to an extent, but literally just like everything's collapsing around him. Their one hope of escape just explodes in front of him. And then Sylvie just kind of walks away and Loki's just staring there like shit. Like, obviously, I'm not expecting them to die, but that's a great way to end it. You know, like a great way to ensure that I'm like, oh, my butt's gonna be in this next Wednesday. But also, like, I know you don't like to do this, but there is a moment where, because we see Sylvie's powers early on, where she can kind of like manipulate, she can control people's minds, she touches them kind of around their throats or their heads, and then she can project images into their heads. And there's a moment about halfway through where she does that to Loki, and Loki reacts like, you can't do this to me. And so there are people that are thinking, and it's presented as though that's the case. Like it didn't actually work. Like she failed to control his mind because he's too strong, too smart. But there are people who are like, what if she did? So what if the rest of this episode was her just messing with him because she has like a plan? Obviously, it's at that point, it's sort of like, what if this happens? But do you think that's a possibility, or do you take it at face value that Loki just is too smart for it to work on him?
No, I mean, I think anything's a possibility at this point. And that would be kind of cool. Although I will say that for anyone who thought this was a filler episode, if that turns out to be the truth, they're going to be really pissed.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And also, I promise we'll move on. But the last thing, where if you're talking about moving the plot forward, they revealed that the TVA is full of shit. Because from the first episode, you know, they were saying like, everyone working at the TVA was either born here or created here, yada yada. But that's not the case. Everyone at the TVA is a variant of someone else at some point. Like the TVA agent that Sylvie kidnapped in the last episode and was kind of brainwashing at the start of this one. She was like, oh, this was from memories hundreds of years ago. So yeah, that's a big effing reveal. I mean, I think that we could guess that the TVA was up to no good, but that's a big reveal that they're effing lying. And it seems like, I doubt that even Mobius is aware of that. They probably don't. They're not even aware of it themselves. So we're peeling back that onion, as it were, as Shrek would say. So the end.
All right. So finally, we are going to talk about the new DC animated universe film, Batman: The Long Halloween, Part 1. This is, of course, based on the graphic novel by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, which I think came out in like the early 90s. I have read it. It's been a very long time, so I don't remember it really terribly well. It's also very long because it's like a full 13 issues. I remember absolutely loving it. It's one of those that really gets into the sort of detective part of Batman. If you don't know about the story, basically there's a serial killer who gets referred to as Holiday because this person only murders on holidays, one in each subsequent month, starting from one Halloween all the way through to the following one. Chris, have you read the comic?
Yeah, similar to you, this was ages ago. It was probably around the time The Dark Knight came out, so 12 years ago. So I also don't remember much of it other than thinking it was really great.
Now, I will say this. One thing, the DC animated movies, they've got some really good ones. They've done, I think in the last few years, a lot of them haven't been so great. And part of that is because, for me anyway, the last few years they've started doing adaptations of some well-known stories like Hush, like Gotham by Gaslight, which is great.
The Dark Knight Rises. No, sorry, the
Dark Knight Returns. That one I like pretty well. Okay. Hush and Gotham by Gaslight are two stories that I love. And one of the reasons why they didn't work so well is they made like a big change in the reveal of who the bad guy was in both movies. And I'm not against changing something from the source material if the changes work. I think in both of those situations, the changes didn't work. It felt like they were changing it just to change it, just so there would be a surprise for anyone who read the book. And I think that just kind of bummed out anyone who had read the books. So for this one, for part one, again, because it's been so long since I've read it, I can't tell how faithful they're being. There were certain sequences where, like, okay, I remember that. I remember that really, really well.
Uh,
I think we're not going to really know how faithful this is until we see part two, because I do remember who the actual killer is revealed to be.
mm.
I do remember that. But I will say, I quite enjoyed this one. I enjoyed it a lot more than I've enjoyed the last few, with maybe the exception of Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was like awesome. That was so good. But like, yeah, like Hush, didn't love it. Gotham by Gaslight, didn't love it. Like, I'm not even gonna say I loved this, but I really liked it. I really liked the tone. I really liked the cast. What were your overall impressions of this one?
Yeah, I quite liked it too. I certainly didn't love it. But I think it's quite good. You know, it's in addition to all the Batman and animated films you mentioned, there's just been a ton of sort of DC made for video animated movies. Many of them are hit or miss. Not all of them are great. Not I don't know. So, but this one I think is one of the better ones. For a lot of reasons. One is it's very mature kind of storytelling. The plot is interesting. Um, you're invested in kind of the mystery of it, even as someone who's read the comics. Like I was still kind of like, oh, who is this again? I forget. And it's interesting to see it kind of unravel. Um, it's quite good. My favorite thing was honestly the art direction of it. The animation, I'll say, it looks good, but it does you can kind of see its budgetary restraints to an extent. Like it feels a little stiff at times, and I'm not an animator, so I don't know the proper terms, but just kind of the shadowing and the texturing, it looks a little kind of, it doesn't look as polished as something that would be released in theaters, but it still looks quite good. And regardless of the animation, the art direction of it is fantastic. This
Yeah,
is how I this is how I always imagine Batman. This very gothic film noir aesthetic. Gotham City is just filled with this beautiful Art Deco architecture, and all the interiors, the lighting of this, the coloring too is great. Like there's a great glow to all the lights in it. So visually, this is a very beautiful kind of animated movie to look at. And
and
like I said,
I'll
okay,
just jump in quickly if you don't mind. Um, I thought that this movie, as far as its aesthetic, I thought they were really giving some nods to Tim Burton, because like the skyline, like you said, had that very Art Deco Burton look.
mhm,
Everyone was dressed as though it was the 40s in like trench coats and fedoras, and the cars
mhm,
were old school. The Batmobile looked a little bit like Keaton's. The Bat Cave looked very, very much like Keaton's.
mhm.
I think that was done on purpose, but please go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. It's very similar to that. It feels inspired by that, similar to the Batman the animated series,
Mhm.
how it took elements from it but kind of made it its own. Yeah, it's one of those things where like you and I are big Batman fans, and this is how I always want Gotham to be kind of depicted in the movies, where it still feels believable, but there's a bit of a heightened realism to it, where it does feel like it's like the name implies, this gothic city that's otherworldly to an extent, where there's these looming skyscrapers, and there's always kind of like a bit of a haze and stuff. It's really beautiful. Tim Burton, um, for what say what you will about his films, he's come closest, I think, in kind of bringing Gotham to life in that way. As much as I love Christopher Nolan's films, I was always kind of disappointed in just kind of how bland Gotham was. It just kind of looked like here's Chicago, but with the occasional CGI building to kind of make it look slightly different from the real Chicago skyline. And that's not very interesting. Um, so yeah, I really appreciated that about this. And yeah, this was good. The voice acting was really good. Troy Baker, I think his name is who does the Joker. It's a very good Joker voice. It's very reminiscent of Mark Hamill's classic iteration of it.
Yeah,
I think it's
he also did it in the Arkham Origins video game, because they couldn't get Mark Hamill for that, so he
oh
stepped
yeah,
in.
yeah. And what's his name? Sorry, I just had it up. Jensen Ackles as Batman is very good. You know, he sounds like he's the appropriate kind of level of gruffness without kind of going into the Bale Bat voice. Everyone did a really really solid job voice acting wise. I also really just liked the characterizations. It simultaneously felt kind of like there was a few things that felt like it was kind of like, okay, in case you don't know anything about Batman, here's some information. But it also that didn't bog it down. A lot of it felt kind of like, you know who this is, you know who these people are, you get it. So it kind of like it didn't kind of waste time giving you detailed backgrounds on everybody's story or about the plot. It really did feel like Batman in media res, like this is Batman year 2 essentially.
Right.
Which is really cool. Which I really liked. I loved seeing the Falcone crime family actually be kind of like treated like mafia men.
Can I just say that, like, I really liked Jack Quaid from The Boys as Alberto Falcone because he was just the right level of kind of sniveling and but Titus Welliver as Carmine Falcone was
No.
Okay, sorry, no, my computer's just being an ass.
Oh.
It does that sometimes. It went to like the Google sign-in screen for some reason. Freaked out.
Oh, weird.
I'll be curious to, in the edit, see what my face did in that moment. I thought Titus Welliver was perfect for Carmine Falcone to the point where I'd love to see him play him live action. He's got that look. He's got that mafia look, even though I think he's like more like of Irish descent. But I thought he was great. And I really liked, speaking of the Dark Knight, I really liked David Dastmalchian as Calendar Man.
Yeah, he was creepy, man.
Yeah.
You know, Calendar Man is definitely it's become kind of a bit of a joke just because it sounds like what a dumb thing. But you see him very Silence of the Lambs in that kind of glass cage with no hair, no eyebrows. And his voice is just very unsettling.
Well, it's also very Silence of the Lambs because they're literally going to a psychopath behind glass to ask for help with the case. And that might have been my favorite sequence of the entire film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot to like about this. I guess that what's kind of stopping it from being really great for me, in addition to the animation not being kind of theatrical, up to theatrical standards, I messaged you that I thought that some of the dialogue was quite bad. There's a lot of really corny lines. There was a point where James Gordon, or Commissioner Gordon, I think at this point, was talking.
I think he was Captain Gordon in this one.
I apologize.
You
never know. Whatever rank this dude is. He was trying to interrogate someone, and I'm gonna butcher. I should have wrote it down, but it was essentially like I don't want to be here right now. My wife is at home making turkey with all the fixings. And I love turkey with all the fixings.
Right.
Like, what the hell? But that was just one example. And there's a lot of examples of like really weird lines that just don't really, they're not weird, but it was just kind of corny, which kind of clashed with me. Cause it's like, okay, if the rest of the film, I think, felt like it was aiming more for a kid audience, then I'd be kind of more forgiving of some of these lines because it felt very childish. But it's a PG-13 film, and they wear that. You know, people are getting shot. There's blood. There's violence. There's some profanity. Not a lot, but you know, the occasional. So that kind of tonal inconsistency,
right,
kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Did you notice that at all? Or
I didn't really pick on that. But now that you mentioned that Gordon line, I do remember thinking like that felt kind of out of place for an interrogation sequence. And one thing, and I was hoping they would have this in the movie going into the movie, and they didn't. Speaking of dialogue that I think is great, I love the opening line of this book. I don't know why. I've never been able to articulate why, but the opening line, I think it's like Batman inner monologue. Maybe it's even Catwoman. I can't remember. But they're talking about this evening in Gotham, and they're like, the line is, "It's hot, but not as hot as the night Jimmy Vitti got married." I don't know why I love that. It feels very like Godfather to me. I don't know what it is. I was like so bummed that they didn't have it in there, but then they throw in turkey with all the fixins. That's too bad.
Yeah, no, that I don't remember that line, but that does sound very noir. Like if you
Yeah,
read a noir novel or a noir movie, it always starts off like the city was weeping with blood.
right.
So yeah, no, I I dug that. Yeah, I it's good. I think this was a good. It was also a good mixture of kind of mystery elements, detective. It really kind of showing Batman. It seems just for the way he kind of mentions to Alfred, you know, that he started doing this this characterization at least started doing it because he wanted to, you know, clean up crime in Gotham, but he never expected himself to become a detective, which is interesting, you know, for, you know, longtime readers or Batman fans, because Batman's very Sherlock Holmes in the sense that he's like the world's greatest detective. Like he becomes an amazing detective, not just like a martial arts master or whatever. So this was also, even though it was like year two Batman, it still was like, hey, he's still kind of learning the ropes of
Mhm.
being a good detective. And part of being a good detective is not just, you know, finding clues and this and that. It's having tact. It's knowing who to interrogate, how to interrogate them, when to kind of keep their calm. Because there's a moment where it's right after the turkey with fixings line, where Gordon is trying to interrogate this guy, and Batman's just like, let me at him. Like he's
Right.
trying to beat the crap out of him. And Gordon's like, you need to calm your little bat tits down, because like this is not how we get it done. So I like that aspect of it too.
I like that. I will say this. Like, I thought they sort of Batman's not the greatest detective yet. He's got to learn to be. Thought they beat that over the head a little bit much. Like
I
they
can agree
kind
with
of
that. Yeah.
kept bringing it up. It was like, okay, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
He's not there yet.
Mhm. No, I agree with that. I think that that kind of fits in with the dialogue bits, because they kind of say it like like out loud, just kind of
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not the best. I'm like, okay, we get it. You're right. Like I think that just that one scene with Gordon would have been enough to
Yeah.
kind of like it, to visually kind of show us that. Um, yeah, there's a lot to like about it. I was also reminded throughout just how similar this was to the film The Dark Knight, and how much inspiration Christopher Nolan must have taken from this. You know,
Yeah.
just little things from visual cues like the big giant pile of money,
Mhm.
um, to, you know, the kind of the origin story of Harvey Dent and meeting with Batman on top of the police station
Yep.
and stuff. There's just a lot of moments where I'm like, yeah, this I can see why Nolan took from this story, because this is kind of it's a great uh, Batman tale. Um, yeah. Do you have any negatives you want to bring up?
I have a couple. This one and this could again this could be straight out of the graphic novel. I don't remember, but right at the end when Batman is confronting Alberto Falcone because he believes he's the murderer,
Mhm.
he shows up and Selena goes, Bruce, and I was like, come on.
Right? Yeah.
No, they've been playing this Bruce Selena Catwoman Batman game. They've been playing this long enough. She's not going to have that obvious of a slip of the tongue. Like that was dumb to me. And I guess they wanted to reveal to Alberto Bruce was
But
Batman,
why?
but yeah,
Why does it matter?
I don't
Why does he need to know that?
I don't know. I don't know.
No,
That felt so cheesy to me.
yeah, I thought that too. I was gonna bring it up, but I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I reacted too. I was like, what the hell? Because at the very beginning of the movie, I was sort of like, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, is this the first time that Batman's meeting Catwoman? But they established, no, they've been doing this for a long time. Selena Kyle shows up to Bruce's mansion as Selena Kyle. Like she's
Mhm.
invited over for dinner. Like Alfred's like, Selena Kyle's here. She's looking hot. So
Well, and
they
then
know
Alfred and Selena even have this like back and forth. It's kind of like tense back and forth that like turns into a joke,
just
and you're not
hot
going to have that.
sexual tension between Alfred and Catwoman. No.
Yeah, but clearly there's like there's a relationship that like they've known
Exactly.
each other for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so to your point, they know each other and they know the routine. This isn't the first time like, oh shit, Bruce, like she would not do that. Why? It makes no sense. But also, it's like it's one of those things where it's like she wouldn't, the character wouldn't do that. So you must have done it for plot reasons, but then the plot doesn't. It doesn't necessitate it, because Alberto uh, is killed. You know, like a few minutes after that. So like, so what's the point of him knowing that he was
Mhm,
Bruce Wayne? I
mhm.
don't know.
That was weird. And another thing that, and this isn't really a problem for me, it just, I found myself noticing it a lot.
Mm.
I thought they did a terrible job of establishing, because the movie's kind of essentially broken up into chapters, with each chapter being like the next holiday where there's a murder.
Yeah.
I thought they did a pretty bad job of establishing which holiday it was some of the time, because they don't tell you. They'll give you a title card and it'll say Halloween, but they won't do it until the end of the chapter after the murder.
Yeah.
Some of them, as I said in the non-spoiler review, some of them very obvious. There's Joker, there's a Christmas tree. I get it.
Yeah.
But like there's sort of Halloween, and there's a reason this confused me more than probably many, but it's sort of Halloween, and then it says the Halloween card, and I'm like, okay. And then they, I guess they mentioned turkey, but like I did not immediately say, okay, we're going into Thanksgiving here. Now, part of that is because in Canada, Thanksgiving's in October, it's not in November. So I didn't make that connection. So maybe that has something to do with it. Even like the New Year's one, that took me a second, because, you know, New Year's and Christmas are in the same month, but I guess technically New Year's Day is the next month. And all they did was they had like party blowers. That wasn't like completely clear to me either.
I agree. Yeah, because there was a point where, like I said, where Alfred calls Batman when he's in the Batmobile, and he was like, "I'm making the turkey, sir," and I just thought he was making turkey. Like it really didn't click to me. And I think the problem is because you couldn't tell. There was no indicator of any passage of time. Like it was seriously
Exactly.
like it went from Halloween, and it was Thanksgiving, which, in the way that the States celebrate it, it's about a month apart. And like it literally felt like what was happening, these events that were happening, were like the next day. Like there was no indicator. And in the same with like from Thanksgiving to Christmas, even though once the Joker showed up and he was like playing with the Christmas tree, I was like, oh, I guess another month has passed. Like I don't know. So I guess it wasn't, for me, it wasn't just that they didn't like really establish the holidays that well, is that there was also just no real indicator of a passage of time.
I think that's a better way of articulating what I think I was trying to say.
No, but I also agree, especially if this is going to be the holiday killer. It's sort of weird to after the murders are done, to just be like, oh, by the way, this was New Year's. I'm like, oh, I guess there were fireworks. Like,
Right.
Okay, you know what I mean? Like, why don't you lean into the holidays a bit more?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, apparently apparently part 2 is coming next month. So I was kind of on the impression that it was going to be quite a while, but
me too. I was pleasantly surprised, because I like this, and I right when I was done, I was like, okay, I'm excited to see the second one. It's probably going to be another year. So the fact that it's coming out like next month, I think this will be good. And like this one is just hair under 90 minutes. I'm assuming the next one is also going to be around that length. So this would be a good like 3-hour long story. You know what I mean? Which I'm glad that they broke it up into pieces, to really kind of tell it and not kind of rush things. So I'm looking forward to part 2.
I mean, I'll say this. I'm a very voracious reader. I love reading, but I'm a very slow reader, and I'm very easily distracted. I would not be able to sit down and read this book in one sitting. There's no way.
Yeah.
Even though most of it is like pictures with only a couple of words, but it's a long read. So trying to force it all into one film, I think would have been a bad call. So
yeah, because it wasn't just like technically a single graphic novel. I mean, you can get it in a graphic novel now, but it's comprised of, I think, of like 13 issues. Like it's lengthy. It wasn't written as like one book, if that makes any sense.
No, it was released monthly for 13 months and then compiled, I believe.
Yeah.
It was just sort of a standalone story. I don't think it was like concurrent with all the other Batman stories at the time. I think it was sort of a one shot, but in 13 pieces. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So thumbs up. Excited for part 2, which I'm sure we'll probably review on here as well.
Absolutely, I'm down.
Cool.
All right, well, that is the show. We want to, as always, thank you guys for watching. Chris, where can people follow you online?
You can follow my Instagram at Art of Light and Shadow. I almost forgot what it's called for a second. Art of Light and Shadow. It's a fun kind of daily movie blog. Post a lot of fun stuff, talk about underrated gems that people might not know. currently I'm doing a best director tournament. That's all users submitted in followers are the ones who are voting on it. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, check it out.
All right. And of course, Andris hopefully is going to be back, excuse me, next week. He's been very busy with moving. He was not here this week, as you may have noticed. If you want to check out his stuff, go on YouTube, do a search for Cheap Thrills, Unspeakable Terror. He does very short to the point movie reviews on horror, sci-fi, B movies from the dawn of cinema to the modern era. I like his channel a lot. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Courtshake. And of course, you're already on my channel. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I'd love you for it. Like we said, we want to thank you guys for watching. As always, consider leaving a thumbs up on the video. Again, helps it get out there, helps grow the channel. We appreciate that very much. And we want to remind you that you can get audio versions of these podcasts on places like Google Podcasts and Spotify. So check that out if you don't have time to watch a whole video. And finally, of course, like we said last week, it really feels like the world is starting to come out of this thing. It's very exciting. But in the meantime, we hope you guys are all safe and healthy. We hope you're all doing well. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you for watching and take care, guys.
All right. Take care, everyone. Later.
Bye.